Hello, I'm Ed Quarters, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at 2016's Puzzle 'em Up, The Witness.
A bubble.
A bubble in a stream.
In a stream.
The game, ostensibly at least, is built around a series of line puzzles found on screens, dotted around an island, full of colour and every biome you could ask for. Well, there's a desert at least, and a jungle, but all that comes later. At the start, players are plopped down into a narrow tube, a screen beckoning them towards its end. Stepping up to the plate, a prompt appears, suggesting that if the player were to click and drag, then maybe something rad might happen. On obliging the game's one explicit tutorial, the player creates a white line linking a circle to nub, unlocking the door with a clunk and a hiss. After one more puzzle, jam-packed with a new and innovative feature, a bend, the player is let out into a starting area. Once again, the player is trapped by a door, but this time someone's gone and put locks over the access screen. That's right, it's the patented multi-stage puzzle lock door puzzle majig. Astute players will notice cables trailing all over the place, and will feel the urge to complete the screens at the end of these cables. All of these are elaborations on the simple puzzle found in the tube, albeit more maze-like with line breaks, and some with multiple start and end points to spice things up. Permutations and variations on the one simple rule of get line from circle to nub. Not overly taxing, the player eases themselves into the bathtub of puzzles that make up The Witness, and I distance myself from that weird metaphor. After this gentle introduction, the gate opens and out the player pops. An eager newborn, thirsty for new challenges, a path stretches ahead, beckoning the player with their formidable puzzle skills onwards. Experienced video game players will, of course, ignore this and shoot off down a partially hidden track, coming across a couple of easy panels, introducing the touch me symbol, aka the hexagon. Anyway, a short stroll along the intended route and the path forks, a panel a short distance away on the left. Aha, says the player, I shall make short work of you, you knave. Then, while still pondering whether or not inanimate objects can really be knaves, they come across this. Bugger. This tile's pretty incomprehensible compared with what's come before. I've put the line from the start to the finish. Come on, open up please. More inventive players will shout open sesame out loud in a variety of different voices before realising that this isn't the way games work. Maybe this way? Nope. Maybe those black and white squares mean something. This is an important moment, one which underlines the design philosophy of The Witness. The game expects the player to come to a realisation, for them to see that there are things that they don't know. They have to acknowledge their current lack of knowledge about the systems and rules governing these panels. To paraphrase Donald Rumsfeld, they have to appreciate that there are known unknowns. At this point, the developers expect the player to down tools and shuffle off, defeated, but with a determination to come back once they know the score with those black and white squares. I'm sure some players will get hung up on this panel trying to brute force their way through it, berating themselves or the game designers for being useless. Eventually though, despite their efforts and barring a rage quit, they will be forced to concede that they aren't equipped to deal with this puzzle quite yet. For The Witness, defeat is not some end state for the player. No bolt of lightning is going to strike them down for not appeasing the puzzle gods. Instead, failure is an admission by the player that they need to either learn some new rules or to go away and ruminate on what they already know before applying it to the current puzzle. At this early point in the game, the new knowledge comes pretty fast. Back on the main path, the player will certainly come across a series of panels in a clearing. These panels walk the player through the meaning of the black and white squares. Essentially, they aren't the best of friends and they need to be separated, teaching them, through worked examples of increasing complexity, how to approach puzzles of this type. It's all a little bit like maths. An alien language to the uninitiated, all squiggles and symbols with no meaning attached. But spend a little time, work through some simpler cases rather than the big scary ones, and fraction by fraction, inch by inch, the curtain is pulled back. The meaning behind this new language is made clear, simple symbols that can add up to a complex whole. Now what does this mean for The Witness? After going through these teaching panels, a thought will most probably strike the player. Was I not struggling with something similar not 5 minutes ago? Rushing back to the panel and knowing that hexagons are the touch me symbol, what was once clear as mud is now easy as pie. Not entirely sure why pie is easy. Maybe they're easy to eat? Regardless, that's another discussion for another day. We'll run with it for now. Anyway, having bested the puzzle, the door makes its satisfying clunk hiss mechanical snake impression. The player walks into a room, opens a box, and finds a drawing of what looks like a solution to another puzzle. I'm sure that will come in handy later, they think. It's just I don't understand what it's for yet. Bam! Again, the lesson is reinforced. And if that wasn't enough, soon the player will probably stumble across the town section of this puzzling island. Here there's an entire area of puzzle tiles containing all manner of symbols and rules which look like hot nonsense. What does any of it mean? Now, unless the player is some sort of puzzle-solving royalty, the panels are unassailable. At least for the time being. In their mental image of the island, the player will put a jumbo-sized post-it note over the town reading, "Bloody difficult, come back later. We'll hopefully have learnt some things." Also, buy milk and bread. This forms the backbone of the game. The different areas are fairly linear in themselves, their puzzle sets exploring the different quirks and rules of the panels. Some places cross-fertilise a little, bringing in elements of other areas, but most are standalone. They provide you with the requisite training and then work their way upwards in complexity from there. This semi-open world puzzle design is one of the strengths of The Witness. Many puzzle games boil down to a series of locked rooms, the player progressing from one to the next. In this way, the developers know, at all times, exactly what the player has and hasn't encountered, what they know and what's left to be taught. This is how Portal works and how the individual areas of The Witness work. They can introduce mechanics, slowly ramp up the difficulty, and the player will feel a dose of satisfaction where they tackle a fiendish puzzle which would have felt impossible 15 minutes ago. But in these other puzzle games, if a player gets stuck, it's like running into a brick wall. They might not have properly grasped the concept from earlier, having just lucked their way through, and now they're trapped with a seemingly unsolvable puzzle between them and freedom. Here they have a choice. They can continue to butt their heads against the wall, or stand back and have a think about it, either with the game idling or off. In The Witness, on the other hand, while there are certainly some brick walls as players are funneled towards the end, the rest of the time the walls are more trampoline-like. The player can still come a cropper, having not the slightest idea on how to solve the next panel in a sequence, but they can then bounce off and go and try something different, the backburners of their brain working on the solution to the tricksy puzzle they just ran away from. The tutorial panels are always accessible as well, should they ever need a refresher course on the basics. There is still frustration, but the freedom The Witness's island presents goes some way in mitigating it. So now we've covered one of the design philosophies of The Witness, that of knowing what you don't know and the power of coming back later, and now we're going to look at another key thought woven into the fabric of the island, the importance of trying a different perspective. The Witness comes at this in a few different ways. Firstly, there are panels which require an appreciation of their surroundings, not just what's there on the screen. One area requires light to be avoided on one set and shadow to be avoided on another. I like to look at it as vampire lines and not vampire lines, but that's personal preference. They start off easily, but, as is the way with these tricksy puzzle games, get harder as they go on. To begin with, it is essentially a reworking of the maze theme of the introductory area. But then players are forced to look beyond the screens themselves. They have to look at shadows on pieces of metal that obscure them and memorise or note down routes. They have to look at the branches which are casting the shadows. Other areas play with this idea as well, turning the player's laser focus on the panels and screens into a weakness, obliging them to think about their surroundings, expanding their idea of what can represent a solution. This theme is reinforced in a way that some might go so far as to say is being a bit on the nose by including audio logs scattered across the island that offer, you guessed it, a collection of different perspectives which often focus on the subject of perspectives. Perspectives on perspectives, if you will. Or does that sound too much like a navel-gazing college paper or some sort of art pop band? Anyway, moving on, the island's amenities also include an underground AV room, where a few video clips covering talks, film clips and documentaries can be unlocked. Remember that mysterious paper behind the door near the start of the video? It unlocks a video down here. Knew it would come in handy. So far, so good. A beautiful island with a ton of puzzles with an underlying design philosophy. Pretty neat, huh? Well, there's still one aspect of The Witness left to talk about, one which neatly ties up the game's themes. The island itself. On the player's journey, bouncing from screen to screen, constantly seeking that new puzzle fix, they'll come across little tableaux set up in all manner of places. There's the juggler who's lost his balls. Please, no sniggering. He's understandably devastated, his face betraying his utter despair. But, if the player changes their viewpoint just so, The balls are revealed in the rocks at his feet. Other scenes like this are strewn across the island. The little crow lady thing, her long red hair embedded in the rock, or the two statues that reach out for each other across the island. By itself, this is a cute bit of visual flair, rewards for the inquisitive, but they're not the only things hiding in plain sight. For the initiated, various parts of the island become puzzles in themselves, freed from the shackles of the panels. There will be a point during the game where the player finds one of these puzzles, be that from the top of the mountain next to the helpful panel that traces out the river's line, or just by looking at the clouds from that one perfect spot. The player will see the familiar circle nub pattern, and will, just maybe, have a go at drawing a solution onto the landscape. Yep, it was a puzzle. Now, depending on your temperament, this is where the witness could become a chore. The players blasted their way through all the conventional puzzles on the island. They've seen the ending.
A bubble.
A bubble in a stream.
In a stream.
Played through the odd little bit where they travelled through an in-game version of the development studio. Hell, they've even completed the timed randomised puzzle section that is the Music Box Challenge. Yes, they're a masochist. Finally, they were treated to the video of a developer awakening in the real world, where they began to see the circles from the game amongst everyday reality in their environment. And now, back on the island, all that's left is these puzzles in the environment itself, which, when completed, light up a section on one of the pillars strewn across the island. Complete an entire pillar? The fountains in the lake push up a little bit higher. Some people may feel cheated by this slim reward, or may feel a compulsion to find all the environmental puzzles and get annoyed by the finicky nature of piecing together some of them. Or they might not enjoy standing behind a video screen for 56 minutes while the secret of Psalm 46 plays out to get, that puzzle completed. But for me, this element of the witness is best enjoyed organically, stumbling across them while wandering the island rather than obstinately searching them out. For me, it ties all the themes of the witness together, the themes of perspective and the themes of knowing what you don't know. You see a shape in the landscape that looks like it could be part of an environmental puzzle, but you can't quite piece it together yet, so you know to come back to it later. And this is where the real magic is. But, then again, that's just a different perspective.